All right, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with another episode of the EOT Newsflash. This is episode 119. Who needs friends with companions like these? And obviously, my usually gorgeous co-host is not here with us tonight, but I do want to introduce, for the first time on the show ever, the equally beautiful, my fellow Splinter twin, Mr. Ian Wheat. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm awesome. Well, as awesome as I can be. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm inside the house, but hey, I'm playing a lot of Magic, so that's a good thing.
Yes, yeah. One good thing to come out of this whole nonsense, and of course I do hope that everybody else out there is being safe. I've played a lot of Arena, and I have sunk more money than I'd care to admit into said Arena.
Yeah, thankfully that doesn't come in the stats email at the end of a season where they
God,
say,
can you
here's how
imagine?
many cards you drafted, and here's how much money you spent with us.
With a simple just thank you from
Yeah,
Watsy at the end of it.
you're welcome.
But yeah, so Ian, I know that you've been streaming a lot as of late. I'll let you plug all your stuff once we wrap up here for the evening. But we want to talk about Standard tonight. I haven't played a whole lot of Standard up until recently. I dabbled with it back when Thornville Drain had just come out, a little bit with Theros Beyond Death. But Ikoria has been the first set that I really want to jump into full stop with Standard. Just like I'm super into the flavor of the whole thing, so I've been playing a ton of it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight about Standard, kind of like what our initial impressions of Ikoria was. Talk a little about Standard, and then the let's just call it the Godzilla in the room. Yeah, the companion in the room.
Nice.
When it comes to Ikoria's sort of hallmark, if you will, mechanic. So I'll throw it to you first here. Just when the first trailer dropped for Ikoria, when the first card started leaking out, what was your initial impression?
So I'll confess, I was very skeptical. Like, the trailers have been amazing. The last, I'd say, I don't know, 6 sets.
Yeah, starting more with the
The
spark and that
yeah,
third full CG trailer, fantastic.
super. Like, the hype is good. The production quality has really improved. I mean, I've been playing this game since I don't even remember, 2004, 5. We didn't have trailers.
Yeah, we
We just
have.
to do it up.
Well, I mean, they had still images, like the kind of like animated
Yeah,
the card
yeah,
art, but nothing to the degree
yeah.
of like a music video
No,
almost.
no. So like I got pretty stoked and hyped about that stuff, but the initial like, oh, this is behemoths, this is big stuff. I was very concerned this was going to be I'm going to slam a giant green creature and win. And that's not my Magic.
No,
I will
no.
play that deck if that's the best deck, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah,
That said, I think the flavor is really cool.
yeah.
It's an interesting set. It's fun to go to a new world because we've done so many returns lately,
Yeah,
and we've got another one coming up. But
yeah,
I'm really enjoying the flavor. I think the art styling has been really fun. There's more diversity in the artists. So like, in those regards, I think it's a great set.
yeah, yeah. 100%. I'm with you there. I love the art, especially on the showcase frames. I think sort of that big, kaiju art style is just phenomenal. I mean, I grew up
Yeah,
watching all the old Godzilla movies from the 50s, and just like as soon as I saw the first car, I was like, this resonates with me. This
yeah,
is 100% like you. Like big green creatures smashing into the red zone. That's not my jam. That's not. We'll get to that in a minute.
yeah.
But yeah, I was 100% on board with it. And then of course, things started coming out about the set, the mechanics, and all that. So was there anything that sort of gave you pause before we really dove into things?
No, not really. Like, I didn't really have any hesitations about this set until the big reveal day when they did their live stream of the reveal and everything, which was again super hype, great production value and everything, and revealing the Toho partnership was so cool. The cards were all great. I think that bringing cycling back, cycling it around, haha, was a awesome choice because it's such a cool mechanic, and
Yes.
we definitely have cycling cards that are fun to play.
Yep.
And then Mutate's really cool. It has it's made limited really interesting, and I'm
Yes.
not normally the one to play draft or sealed, but I've enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, my biggest reservation was around mutate, simply because it, to me at least, and my experience with limited so far has completely proven this to the contrary. Just my initial impression, my thought was this is going back to a battle cruiser style of Magic. Did you
Yeah.
play a lot of the original Theros block in
Oh
limited
yeah.
at all? So you kind of
Yeah.
remember that stick a big threat, protect big
Load it
threat.
up, Voltron.
Yeah, Voltron it up
Yeah.
and just beat down. And that was kind of not what I was wanting to get into here. But after playing a bunch of limited games so far, I love this limited format. So to see that that's not the case is very, very refreshing.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really wasn't all that worried about anything. Nothing seemed to be just overly oppressive. I thought all the mechanics, like cycling, absolute cycling. The companion mechanic looked really interesting as well. We'll get
We'll get to that in a second.
we'll get to that here in a second. But yeah, like just everything about the set was just full stop amazing. And like you mentioned, with somebody returned to sets, at least in the past couple of years, it was really refreshing to get something that I think was so uniquely magic. I want to call it like Throne of Eldraine was cool, but it didn't feel uniquely magic. It felt
Yeah.
like it felt too familiar. But this is just something
Yeah, Eldraine had
completely out
that
of it.
challenge of being, if I can make a D&D reference, it's like
Yeah.
having Forgotten Realms. Forgotten Realms has become a kitchen sink. Everybody's got it. Everything's in it.
Yep.
And Eldraine was like the classic European fantasy kitchen sink. Now, I think it's fun.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where they set out with a vision and they executed very well on that vision. It's just maybe they could have dreamed a little bigger, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like the impact of the cards on the formats that they're legal in has been undeniable. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So now, of course, like immediately I jumped into the limited format. I really wasn't too keen on playing a lot of standard for this format, but then I started playing with the cards. I've got a bunch of friends that I talk to constantly online or say, "Oh, I brewed this deck, I brewed that deck," and I just got the bug for it. And I already had some decks from last standard, like Jeskai Fires and other control decks. I just thought, well, I've got most of this. What's the harm in buying a few dozen booster packs and upgrading things and cracking those wild cards? So, want to talk a little bit about standard as it's sort of as we first started, just from the get go. What were we playing now that standard is here for Ikoria? What's been your jam here recently?
So it's interesting to look at. If you had asked me how standard was as a format 1.5 weeks ago, like right before release,
Yeah.
I had a very negative answer compared to what I had 2 weeks before that. 2 weeks before that, I was hyped on standard. The format was feeling nice and healthy.
Okay.
But it stagnated hard, and I think some of that is probably because of the current world situation where we are playing more Magic.
Yes.
So
yeah.
some of us burn out a little bit.
Yep.
I'm certainly seeing a lot of that on Twitter where people are like, I'm going to take the weekend off. I need to refresh. I'm going to go play something else and then come back next week, which is smart. But
yeah, absolutely.
What was interesting was to see that this is a big standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're coming up to rotation in a few months, just a couple months, and so this
Thankfully,
is a big
too.
yeah, this is a big card pool.
Yeah.
So I was hoping to see a lot of, wow, remember this card from War of the Spark or this card from Ravnica Allegiance that we thought was cool but we couldn't play. I have seen a lot of that in existing archetypes.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. That's what's gotten me excited again after that lull. Was Sacrifice and Aristocrats was just an ever-present deck. I played a lot of it and I like it. It's a fun thing to play. But we had tons of cool new brews. We had a Mardu take on it. We had an Orzhov take on it. We had a stricter black-red take on it. And then, we did see cards coming back from some of the older standard sets into it. So if I run down the list, I haven't played the Garuda decks yet. And I haven't played the Yorion deck yet, but I'm like 2 cards short of Esper Control Yorion.
Nice. Full 80 card build, right?
Full 80 card build.
There we go.
Yeah. So, the impact of the set has definitely been big, even without companions. Like, because I do want to leave that for the later discussion.
Yeah.
Even without companions, the number of cards you can play in an existing archetype is pretty impressive. You mentioned fires. I
Yeah.
like the fires deck a lot, and you and I go way back on blue red and blue red white.
Yep.
And fires, like the only innovation in fires was main decking Ether Gust and maybe Haktos over the Blue Cavalier.
Yeah.
Which I personally didn't like.
Yeah. No.
But now, again, it gets to run a companion, so it gets an automatic. That's an automatic upgrade in my mind.
Yep. The new Narset is a huge addition to it.
The new Narset that is exactly where I was going with that thought. She's such a great card. Like, she's just on the surface. I think this is interesting design. On the surface, you sit there and you're like, okay, it's another 4-mana walker. That used to be our litmus test, right? If it was 4 or less, we started talking about it. That's obviously not always the case, especially with green. But
if it's green, it comes out on turn 2. So it doesn't
exactly.
matter.
Exactly. But I mean, my obvious bias for blue, white, red. She's an interesting card.
Yeah.
The only challenge I have is that the spend this mana only to cast a non-creature spell. You can't cycle with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah. I caught myself with that the other night, but she's great because she gains you life, she gets you some card advantage and removal, and the emblem is super sweet. I may or may not have emblemed twice in the same game off the same Narset, and then cast Stomp for 6.
What was your opponent doing that they did not interact with your Narset? Like, what could have
they totally... So they were on a cat loop. They just kept cycling and cycling. So it's an awesome game. I've got a recording. It's one of the ones I'm going to cut some scenes from. So, it's definitely been fun to see impact on a large scale, but without rocking the boat too much. Like, you can still play Bant. It's still one of the top decks. So if you were playing Bant 2 weeks ago, you can play Bant today. There's a couple of changes, but not much.
Yeah.
And same thing with Aristocrats and the aggro decks. Mono red is still mono red. I don't think they changed at all.
I lose to it at least 3 times a night. If not more.
It keeps us humble.
Yeah, I'm humble for sure. Yeah. So I mean, I obviously immediately gravitated towards upgrading my Fires decks. I have 2 variants of it now, a straight Jeskai version, and I also have one that I saw. I don't know if you follow Bloody on Twitter, but she posted a really interesting build that was 4 colors adding green and ramping with Arboreal Grazer and
Growth Spiral.
Growth Spiral, yeah. The deck plays like 29 lands. It feels like it plays 400 at times, but when that thing hits, and I've got 5 lands on turn 3, I untap, play Shark. I play Shark Typhoon, and then the next turn I untap, I play Inspired Ultimatum. I feel like a freaking hero.
Yep.
Or, I mean, I feel unstoppable, So, I mean, I've got those. I've got just the straight Jeskai control, which you mentioned, Andrea Mangucci's list. I found a list in the South Florida Magic group of it's a red-white cycling deck that just plays all the Stinger guy, the one that gains you life, the one that makes tokens, and, of course, the finisher is Zenith Flare. How many games have I won with this deck so far? 1. It's terrible.
But it sounds like it's a fun deck to play.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, when you remember that Zenith Flare gains you life on the back end of it, it's real. Like, I mean, you fire off 2 of those, and I love the fact that you're like most of your cycling cards all cost like 7 or more, or at least it feels like they do, and none of them you can actually cast.
please tell me it runs Yudaro Godzilla.
No, not this version. But I'm thinking it probably needs to.
Yes.
There's some tweaks that need to be made to the deck first. Oh wait, I can't do that because it's playing a 8th card. Maybe we'll
card that makes.
Maybe we'll fix it. Maybe we'll fix it. Maybe we'll fix it. So have you been like what other things have you been playing?
I've mostly been playing the Jeskai and the Orzhov's Sacrifice. I think it's fun to go back to 2 colors and find some real consistency. Although let's definitely mention that Triome lands are the best.
Yes.
Because cycling.
Yep.
Plus 3 colors. Plus, they are basic typed.
Plus, they're basic types. That when I saw that for the first time, my jaw was on the floor.
Yeah.
I would have never have thought they would have do something like this, and
Yeah.
obviously they're not going to have an impact in really anything outside of standard and probably EDH. It's just like it's a natural evolution, and I think it was just a matter of time before they got printed. So cool.
Well, it's interesting because they probably have a place in modern a little bit.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Onesie twosie. Pioneer, no, because we don't have anything that fetches basic types. We have stuff that fetches basic lands.
Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting to see there. They have done a good job, I think, in R&D of wording things very well, knowing what they're going to release later.
Yeah.
To avoid some of that kind of power creep. Because now, I may say some negative things about WotC R&D later, so I have to say something very positive right now.
Let's do that right now.
I want Morrow to know that I love him, and I think that everything WotC does is amazing, and I don't want them to ever stop making the game. But to put all that out there now, the triomes are awesome, and if you're playing on Arena, the alternate arts are so cool.
Yes. Now I will say, without looking at a screen, without like any thought, can you name any of them off the top of your head?
I can name one of them, and I can say it the right way. It's Raugrin, not Ragurin.
The good one,
the
Jeskai one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my only problem with these cards is that they don't have a very, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess sort of identifying name. There's nothing really iconic about Ragurin. I mean,
yeah. The wedge names do not roll off the tongue.
No, they do
I
not.
get it. They can't use the wedges from cons because it's a different plane. But
yeah.
Oh man, those names.
Yeah, it'll get there eventually. I think.
Maybe.
I mean, at least we're not dealing with like Jeskai Black, Mardu Blue, like none of that nonsense is happening right now. But I think eventually we might adopt it, but I don't foresee myself just rattling these things off. One of the other decks that I've been playing a lot of and having some success with and seeing multiple variants of is Flash. I know you look at Flash threats, blue green, blue red, blue black, mono blue. Have you got a chance to play around with any of those yet?
I haven't played them myself, but I've played against several of them, and I've watched a few streamers playing. If you follow Titans Fan 920, he's got a really nice Dimir blue-black Flash build. I like that one. I think blue-green still has an element that I really, really like in Frilled Mystic.
Yeah, and Nightpack Ambusher, especially.
Ambusher. As much as I like to hate on green, that's a blue card. That's a blue card.
It is a blue card.
I know it's justifiable on the color on the pie chart, but it feels very blue. I think the Flash decks are very interesting, and it's always fun to watch the people who play what's the nice way to say it, a little more casually, and don't the not spikes.
Yes.
Can I say that? The not spikes?
Yeah.
The ones who concede when you play blue cards. No, I'm being too harsh. There's a lot of
who you are.
You know who you are. There's a lot of angst about Flash decks.
There absolutely is, yeah.
And I get it. Some people feel like they're not playing. I love playing against a deck that puts pressure because then I feel like I'm actually playing a game. There was a really cool discussion, I forget who started it on Twitter last week, about what defines interactive. Because a lot of people will say, as a generic complaint, that format is not interactive enough, or this deck isn't interactive enough. Mm-hmm. But everyone means something different.
Yeah.
To some people, interactive is, am I slamming creatures and going into the red zone?
Yeah.
To some people, means, am I interacting on the stack?
Yeah.
And to some people,
killing
interactive
creature. Sure, yeah.
Yes. So it's a variable meaning, and the Flash decks are a kind of interaction that I can enjoy.
Yeah.
Even when I'm losing to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the blue-green variant, I think, is the better of them. We talked about Frilled Mystic and Nightpack Ambusher. I think Growth Spiral is just a card that WotC's going to look back on in probably about a year or so and go, why did we print this?
At 2 mana.
At 2 mana especially. But just like all the angles that deck has to attack with. And I love kind of like what you're talking about, how the less spiky of players out there. I love playing the mirrors or just any flash mirror, and you can tell that your opponent doesn't quite know what to do.
Yeah.
And when they're trying, or they're trying to fight you on your end step, and you fight back on your end step, and then they're out of cards, and you're just like, well, I got this full board now. I'll have to brag on my girlfriend here for a minute because she's been getting pretty heavily back into Magic. You know, she plays Auto Commander with me. But she was like, "Hey, I want to play some Magic today." I was like, "Cool, I'll fire up a reader for you." And I said, "Well, what do you want to play?" And she's like, "Well, the Shark deck." And I was like, "Well, which one? Do you want Shark Typhoons or you just want Sharks?" So she sat down and played, you know, a handful of games with Blue Green Flash. And I'm just looking over, and she's just clocking people. Like, Growth Spiraling, Voracious Shark. I'm just like, this girl's got it. And, you know, when a girl can play Magic, that's just...
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. She's a keeper. She's a keeper. But yeah, I mean, but it just to see, you know, especially because she was enjoying it too. So to see that she's actually enjoying the style of deck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really trying to make a point here. It's just more of a anecdotal, if anything.
It's interesting too that you mentioned one particular card there, Voracious Great Shark. That's a card that if you spoiled it as the first card in a set, we'd all laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive and it counters 2 types.
Yeah.
But you pause for like a split second and you're like, it's Torrential Gearhulk with a counterspell.
Yes. God, I miss Torrential Gearhulk.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to get all misty-eyed here in a second over these old cards.
That's okay. Cry it out. The other archetype that I think is present in this meta, it may not last. We'll see. We had this Knights sub theme going.
I've seen a couple of those.
Yeah, and it's stuck around. I don't even remember who shared it, but in one of the online Magic Fest online daily qualifiers, somebody qualified for this weekend's tournament with a Grixis version. So it's red black splashing Royal Scions.
You have my attention.
So I put it together this morning before work. I say that very carefully because this is being recorded before work.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's Knight of the Ebon Legion, it's Fervent Champion, it's Blacklands Paragon, right? The classic knights that we have right now. Rotting Regisaur because value, Embercleave, obviously, Rankle, and then really the only blue card is Royal Scions, and then some Mystical Disputes in the sideboard.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's great, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're early enough in the format right now. We're barely 2 weeks in right now. I will be 2 weeks tomorrow, effectively, where things are still fresh enough that, you know, I mean, even though Arena has sort of like condensed the life cycle of, you know, Magic decks and if they're good or not to just like, you know, minuscule of time, you know, days before these things get broken.
Yeah, the meat grinder is a lot faster.
Especially very fast. They're like, and to my point, you know, there's enough new things out there that are still being discovered or things are being brought back, kind of like you mentioned. I played against a Gates deck the other day.
No way.
My opponent went turn 2, Metamized Prophecy. I'm thinking, okay, some kind of teamer control thingy, and then he named Gatebreaker Ram.
Wow.
And I had to stop and go, okay, this is awesome. This is so cool. And he thought, and like, the Gates Ablaze came down to wipe I was playing Blue-Green Flash. He's like, I'm going to get him. I'm like, I've got Frill Mystic. I mean, but just to see those cards come back, just like for a brief moment, is just, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah. Well, and that's you make a really good point with what I just called the meat grinder of where the volume of games that can be played does solve a format faster. And I know that, like, again, we've seen over the last 6-8 years, we've seen Wizards kind of pushing back on that. Hey, we're not going to release all the data about tournaments because we don't want people to solve formats too quickly. And I'm like, really, why? Because we're going to share the data anyway. But at the same time, because you can play more games, people have opportunity to try things out more rapidly and more frequently.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting back and forth paradigm, I think, where there are times where I hate the ranked ladder because the ROI is really low.
Yes.
Right? Like, you've got to get top 1200 in order to play, and only every other month is it a qualifier. The other times it's a point challenge. So, like, that's its own thing. I do think there should be more reward for being mythic at the end of a month, but that's a separate topic.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't have a ranked ladder and you only have standard events 1 or 2 times a week, you know, if you're playing paper only, you get standard a couple nights a week. if you're lucky, like I live in an area where there's more than enough shops running more than enough events, I could play one format every day of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky, but like people who live in rural areas don't have that. So the fact that Magic Online has a higher volume of competitive level events and we have the ladder, I think has made people a lot more open to trying things.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
As the classic net deck guy, right? I go find what other people are playing because I don't have the patience to brew.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not good at it. I like that the people who are good at brewing, the Andre Mengucci's.
Yeah.
He's like pumping out like 6 lists a week.
Oh yeah. Like I remember the articles on MTG Goldfish. It's like, here's the first 50 deck lists for Ikoria. I'm like, who has time to do? I mean, if you're being paid, sure.
Yeah.
I'll give you a crap deck list all day long.
Sure. Yeah. If I quit my job, then I can do that.
Exactly.
It'll be crap.
Yeah. And this is obviously there's a much bigger discussion to be had here later on. You talk about the number of games you can play in a day. You talk about the burnout a little bit. I mean, I experience, like, if I go to like my Friday night Magic and do drafts like we usually have, I can play 3 games and I go home. But I can jam 20 games in the same amount of time on Arena. And you get that euphoric high of a good win streak, and you get the lows when you're just getting your butt kicked. So there's a really weird, like you said, there's that paradigm shift of just how Magic is being experienced right now, especially with everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
And the ability to go out and try new things. The only thing that this might sound mean to some people, but if I'm going to go out and look for a deck list, and if I'm on Twitter and I see, whatever insert pro A here, who's like, oh, I've been on a run with Yorion Esper Control. I'm like, cool, let me see your list. Oh, it's behind my Patreon paywall.
Oh, man.
Make your bread, make your bank, however you need to, but man, to me, that has been a massive stinger, especially early on in a format. I know the data's out there, you can go and find it, but you've got people who are, looking for immediate lists and things like that. It's a bit of a stinger.
I have interesting feelings about that issue, about that topic. I mean, the irony, of course, being the fact that we are recording a podcast about this game, and
with no paid sponsorships, by the way. Sure. This is not brought to you by anybody.
I'm super lucky, and I'm very honest with people, right? I'm super lucky that I have a career that pays me well enough that I can enjoy the games that I like to play.
Same.
So I have so much respect for the actual full-time content creators.
Yeah.
Because they make my enjoyment of the hobby possible.
Mm-hmm.
That said, how we monetize, I think, how it's monetized is really important.
Yeah.
I try really hard to support people. I put money into bits on Twitch so that I can support people. I put my subs out there. The paywalls for deck lists is an interesting one, especially when you consider that Channel Fireball just launched their pro service.
Yeah.
SCG has had premium since the dawn of time.
Yep.
I think that, does Cool Stuff have a premium?
They don't. I found that out recently because I was looking for articles, and sure enough.
Yeah, and TCG Player has something that is not content, but they do have a subscription thing that gives you discounts on purchases. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So and I support the fact that all those things exist. It's good. Star City, the articles go free after a certain time. So
1 week.
It all works out.
Yeah.
But what you've identified there, I think, is this time lag.
Yeah.
So we went from, in 05, when I learned what Magic was in college in the community center on campus, and we played with unsleeved starter decks from 8th edition. So don't worry, there wasn't anything of value. If we had been playing competitively, the deck lists were circulating from Pro Tour, from GPs, and it was circulating electronically online, but it was slow. Like it wasn't within minutes or seconds of the events. We're kind of spoiled, right?
Yeah,
like we get top 8 deck lists within 5 minutes of top 8 being announced.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the interesting developments with Magic Fest Online is that's an open deck list event.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever played a Grand Prix with open deck lists?
No, it's absurd.
No. It's awesome. there's a great guy on Twitter, at Fire Shoes, Robert Taylor. He's doing some cool analysis of the Magic Fest metagames, both the numbers of each archetype that are registered and the ones that do well, etc. But we've lost a lot of that time lag, I think, is the point, right? We have so much instant gratification on deck lists. Maybe I need to get over myself a little bit and say, okay, it's fine if there's a paywall and I just have to wait for them to a top 8 some event before I play.
Yeah.
That may be that turning point for like the moderate spike to the serious spike is now who's willing to invest to get information faster.
Yeah. And that's kind of where, that basically segues into my point. If you want to do well in the game, you have to invest time, money, actual tangible resources. Yeah. And that's why I got over myself, because I haven't been able to play Paper Magic in 7 weeks, almost 2 months now. And so I said, if I haven't spent the money on actual cards, I can spend it on digital cards, which is why I justified buying all of those packs so I could play these decks. But yeah, like the time lag is absolutely gone down to microseconds now. But yeah, and like you said, if you want to play the game, play it in your way, but be prepared to pay what it's going to cost to play the game.
It's the difference between cutting edge and bleeding edge. And I think that's kind of how I've come around on that topic, is that I'm okay being cutting edge most of the time. Every now and then I've definitely thrown somebody a Patreon sub just long enough to get one list. I'm like, okay, good, I put my money in, I got the deck list I wanted, and I'm really cautious about recurring bills, so we cancel it. Cancel
immediately, And I think there's a much deeper conversation to be had about the monetization of this game, which I think so. Would love to have that conversation again with you. So be prepared for part Future 2 episode. Of Ian, yes. And we could easily go on about that, but I do want to pivot a little bit and talk about friends. Everybody has friends. Everybody loves friends, but does everybody have companions?
We were talking like companions, like in Firefly, where we had a.
Companions. I mean, you can have companions of all kinds, but let's talk about magic companions.
Magic companions.
Yeah. So, kind of to dial back to our opening topic, talking about the initial impact of our initial impression of Ikoria. When you first saw the word companion and you saw the text on there, which way did your mind go?
I actually disregarded it very quickly. I thought those were going to be cards for casual kitchen table, or they were going to have an impact on limited formats. So I didn't read them very closely, because I forget which one they spoiled first and which one I saw first, but the restriction on deck building seemed so out there that I was like, oh, well, nobody's going to play that. I didn't even stop to think about the value of an 8-card opening hand every game.
Yes.
Or about the fact that those restrictions are not as harsh as they sounded.
They're really not. I mean, the mechanic is very similar to, I don't believe it's named anything, but in Hearthstone, there were cards, I think within a couple of recent expansions, that basically did the exact same thing, either even CMC or odd CMC, at least in their language. But yeah, the restrictions seemed to be almost too much. The ones that specify certain creature types, or or poor Lutri, who's been banned in singleton formats everywhere. But the value of the 8th card, that's what I'd never thought about. And then when you extrapolate further beyond that, it's typically, in the case of one of them specifically, or two really I can think of, depending on your format, it's your best card to always have your payoff. I mean, can you imagine if we had Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger just always at your disposal during Kaladesh Standard?
How many times have I played against, Tron's a good example, where, they, especially a few years back, Tron in Modern, if they could put together Tron, but they couldn't find Karn, or they couldn't find the other, what's the other Eldrazi? I can't remember the name. Not Ulamog. Kozilek, yeah. Couldn't find one of those. Like literally, if they just whiffed on their draws, who cares? Emrakul, that's the one.
The good one.
The good one. It's like Kozilek, no, that's not right. But like, you can survive 2 or 3 more turns because they didn't draw it. But now if your payoff card, if your payoff card's in your opening hand, And I get it. There's a justification, quote unquote, of, well, that's just one copy that's in your opening hand, and if
Yeah.
it dies, it doesn't go back. It doesn't go back to the command zone.
Thankfully.
But they're not hard to get back.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how many ways you can bounce something back to your own hand.
Yeah.
Petty theft, no, because that does say opponent. But if you want to be cautious, you can Teferi bounce your companion back to your hand.
Yeah. Cats run away together if you want to get really cute with it. I do just want a quick what if scenario. I mean, so you mentioned modern and sort of like, having Karn or Umikul in your hand always. Can you imagine having a Splinter Twin in your hand all the time?
Dude, even just having the Deceiver Exarch or the Pestermite in your hand all the time would be great. Never mind, I'll draw the enchantment.
Right.
Just having one piece would be nice. So play that scenario out, right? What if one of these companions becomes a piece in an infinite combo?
Yeah.
And it's always in your opening hand in whatever format you're playing it in.
Yeah.
I mean, Vintage has Luris in particular has a really interesting impact on Vintage and on Legacy because of the average CMC of those formats.
Yeah, 0 basically. Black Lotus off of Luris back into play is...
yes.
And actually, you mentioned Vintage and other formats. I'm going to throw a quick image upon the screen here.
Yeah.
This was a tweet that was sent out by Brian Gottlieb, I think about a week ago. And this is a snapshot of the first week, 7 days of Ikoria's release, and companions took, in order, first and second in the Moto Vintage Challenge. First and second. First through fourth in the Legacy Challenge. 1, 2, 3, 4. The entire top 8 of the Modern Challenge. First through fourth in the Pioneer Challenge. I couldn't tell what those Pioneer decks look like, but that's still a stat. It's a data point.
Yep.
And then 6 of the 8 slots in the top 8 of the Moto Standard Challenge. 1 week.
Yep.
Every format.
So you want to talk about format impacting as a new set? Or you don't want to talk about as format defining? Or you want to talk about defining one format?
Yeah.
If a new set comes out and redefines standard, we say, wow, that was highly impactful. It wasn't just impactful, it defined standard. And that's cool because that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Standard's a rotating format. We expect that.
It's supposed to happen.
And sometimes we bemoan and say, oh, that set didn't impact Modern at all, or that set didn't impact Legacy at all. Okay, whatever. I didn't have to buy any of it.
Exactly.
But if it redefines a format, I mean, the GIF at the end of that tweet is absolutely right. It's Jake Peralta with the cool, which is basically him saying, this is totally not cool and I'm freaking out.
Yeah. I mean, you said redefining a format. I would go as far as saying redefining Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes sort of, it takes the commander aspect of what makes Commander unique by always having your commander at your disposal to put that into a standard format and then build your deck I mean, there's never been a point in time where you had to restrict how you built your deck in a game for Magic other than the archetype that you're in. Yeah. And it's absurd. I mean, the first companion I played against was Garuda in a game of Limited. I didn't quite think about it at first. I'm like, okay, that sucks. Maybe I can beat this thing. But then I failed to realize just how, even though restricting it, like even mana cost is a big restriction in Limited.
Yeah.
My opponent was on 5 colors with no fixing, all basics, but somehow in all 3 games managed to hit his colors just as he needed them. But slammed the Garuda. I'm like, okay, he got one thing back. He can't do it again. I killed it, and he cast back for more on my end step.
Yeah.
And I had an aneurysm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you think about the impact, not just in the value that he got out of his deck for playing that, but that means he milled 8 cards off your deck, off of your 40-card deck.
Yeah, I lost to mill last night playing against Garuda decks. There were 6 in play.
Yeah. Yeah, spark double.
Yep. Yeah, and then having Thassa to trigger them or Charming Prince
every time.
I was like, this is. I mean, I made a really bad joke of saying, "Oh, it's just ban Agent of Treachery," because this thing seems completely oppressive with Garuda in the format. There's the Boros Mythic that can get Agent of Treachery into play on turn 4. Like, this is a problem. Let's get rid of Agent of Treachery. And then I played against the Garuda deck without any interaction, and I finally saw the light, or the darkness, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, just so you know, I've been saying ban Agent of Treachery for 3 months, because it is, as a concept, it is, to me, very against what Wizards seems to be pushing in Magic. It's not just let me take your stuff, it's let me take your stuff and never give it back, including your land.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a separate topic.
Absolutely.
One of the things about the companions that that is interesting that you were mentioning there is the casting cost.
Mm-hmm.
So we have I've got them pulled up over here. We've got everything from was the cheapest are 3 mana.
Yeah, 3 drops up to 6.
Up to 6. But they're all hybrid.
Yeah. Yes.
So we have this like layering, layer upon layer of bad choices. I think we have the deck building restrictions weren't hard enough.
Yeah.
And we have the casting costs on a lot of them are too low. 3 mana for like Lurrus or Lutri is too low.
Yep.
Then you have their hybrid. They should have been gold at the minimum, right?
Yeah.
They should have been, Lurrus should have been a white and a black. Garuda should have been a blue and a black. Make them harder to cast or harder to splash. That is 100% shown in the fact that I played Lurrus Burn in a Modern League this week.
How are those Mishra's Baubles?
So good. They're so expensive now. They were $20 when I was played that, and that was a few days ago. I'm actually going to look them up here.
On Moto?
Yeah, $20 on
Get
Moto.
out. God.
Yeah. Mishra's Bauble, a 0 mana artifact.
Yeah.
Oh, they are now 49 tickets.
Yeah, you sacrifice Mishra's Bauble to look at, I think it's your opponent's top card of their library.
It's you pick
a player,
target player,
the top card of their library, and then in the beginning of the next upkeep, draw a card.
Yep. So you get to draw a card, which is just obviously the most powerful thing in Magic.
Yeah.
It costs you nothing. So by itself, it's always been a card that's been played, and it's been played a lot in the Death Shadow decks for the last little while. But Lurrus lets you play it for free every turn.
Yeah.
Every turn. And if you don't have a Bauble in your yard, in that deck, you get to play a Goblin Guide again, or a Monastery Swiftspear again.
Yeah. Or Death Shadow from the
Death Shadow if you're playing Shadow, yeah.
Or heck, you can play a Tarmogoyf out of the Lurrus Jund decks, which I think just look amazing.
They do. And that's the weird thing, right? Like, it's not or maybe it's not weird. This is why it's a problem. I think it's a problem. We will play them.
Yeah.
And they will stifle formats.
Mm-hmm.
There's another Magic card name reference, stifle. They will. Yeah, I think really the way to say it is what we said earlier. It's redefining not just formats but the game. I enjoy a game of EDH, a game of Commander every now and then.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite format, and part of why I don't care for it is the deck building restriction. I don't like Singleton.
That's fair.
It just I want my 4-ofs every now and then. Oddly, I play control decks, which are often just piles of single cards and tons of draw spells. But anyway.
But it feels like you always have those cards because you always have Sphinx's Relation.
Right, always. And I understand that in Commander, you build for consistency in other ways and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So it can be a fun format. But I like that it's its own thing. And so that's why I dismissed Companion when they spoiled it. I said it was going to be a kitchen table thing. It was going to be a limited thing. I didn't think it was going to show up and take over. And now I think the consensus we're starting to see is you need a really good reason to not play.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Pioneer is a good example. You mentioned like half of the top 8.
Yeah, first through fourth in the Pioneer Challenge. What those decks look like, I have no idea.
I haven't looked since I saw the list of top 8 the day that it happened, and I know that Inverter was in there at least twice.
Okay.
I would venture to guess that Inverter was at least 3 of those 4 without companions.
Yeah.
Because Inverter doesn't. I mean, you could run a companion. You could probably
I mean,
run.
you could.
You
You
can't
lose
run
out.
Orion.
Yeah, you lose out on things like Thoughtseize and whatnot, but you could probably play a convincing build of Garuda Inverter. Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. I'm spitballing there. But like all of
Even
your key cards are even CMC,
yeah,
Thassa's Oracle, Inverter
Thassa's
of
Oracle,
Truth.
Inverter, Jace.
Yeah,
Both Jaces
but
are even
yeah,
CMC.
holy cow. That
Uh,
seems feasible. That seems doable.
Even Dig Through Time is a even
Oh
CMC. It's
man.
8 or 2, so
Yeah, let's be real. It's always two. It's always two.
it's always 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know we look back towards vintage. You know, Lurus being the Lurus, buying back Black Lotus every single turn. It's
Yeah.
just like I don't even want to. I mean, I'm sure the decks are very very cool, and I love watching vintage games played out.
Oh
But as
yeah.
soon as I thought of that and I saw those tweets, I'm just like, this is why. I mean, again, redefining what it means to play constructed formats.
Yeah.
Heck, even Brawl's been ruined by the Gigantha one. I played one
Yeah.
game of Brawl, and then decided I wasn't going to play it again because it was Gigantha and Niv Mizzix Reborn. I was like,
Oh
never again,
wow.
never again am I doing
No.
this.
No, that does not sound fun.
Yeah.
The so there's I think we have an interest. It's an odd thing because the game has always been evolving.
Yes.
Always. It's not the same game it was in 1995. It's not the same game it was in 2005. Um,
Or 2015 for that matter.
or even yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even 2015. Planeswalkers were probably the last thing that was added to the game that had this much of an impact.
Yeah.
But look around. Every format has decks that play 0 Planeswalkers,
Yeah.
or play one, or play a handful, and then yeah, we have decks that we call them Walker decks.
Yeah.
That's healthy. It has an impact on every format, but not a defining impact on every format. This has shifted. This is almost like the only step further. I think maybe it's too bold of a statement. The only step further you could take would be to say, now you have to use a companion, right? And then you have Hearthstone, where you pick your class and you have a class ability that you can play every turn, right?
Yeah.
It would be like playing Hearthstone without the class ability thing.
Yeah.
And then one day
Yeah.
Blizzard is like, hey, cool, guys, we added this thing, and here's how it works. Now, maybe Hearthstone players would have been okay with that
Yeah.
because it's a video game.
Yes.
Like, this is a card game, but it's a video game.
Yeah.
We see that stuff happen and changing in digital games, but maybe this is part of Magic's identity crisis of, is it a digital game or a card game?
Yeah. Much bigger discussion to be had there for sure.
Yeah, I still think I would still argue that even if it is a digital game, this is too big of a change. But
Yeah. Yeah. I will always argue it's a paper game first. Digital is simply a distraction while I can't go outside.
nice.
But yeah, we keep going back to that word of redefining what it means to play Magic. In this identity crisis, I honestly am happy that Wizards took the risk. But is the salt worth the squeeze? There's a line too far, and I think we may have found it. You mentioned Planeswalkers being a great example of that. People thought that was the end of the game. And now, War of the Spark, aside, I mean, Nissa can just go bugger off as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, they're fine. You get 2 or 3 a set, and, 1 is usually good.
Yeah.
A couple are just absurd, looking at you, Oko. But these cards have just had a seismic impact. You use the term paradigm shift, just across all facets of Magic. And I'm going to be very curious to see what happens before Core 2021 comes out. Are we going to see some sort of massive shakeup in these cards?
Well, I think Planeswalkers and War of the Spark is a good example too, because we took something that we knew and had dealt with Walkers, and then we added static abilities on the Planeswalkers. And I think most people agree that was a bad choice.
In most cases.
I think
in most cases. 2 in particular are degenerate to the point where it's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, I play 4 of Teferi in a lot of decks, and I think it's degenerate.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to play it.
How else can you win those games, though?
Right. Well, yeah, it's true. But those static abilities are something that the game and the communities have rallied to both play and to play against.
Yep.
It has created the right kind of tension. Companion creates no tension. You
Yeah.
play it.
Yeah. If you can, you should.
Yeah, exactly. If you can, you should. And if you're not playing one, your strategy had better be really good.
Yep.
Dimir Inverter being the key example there.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. Certainly never in my time playing the game have I seen Wizards come out and say, "My bad, yo. We're errata. We're going to do some massive errata and remove the word companion from all these cards."
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I want to have happen. Is Oracle text? They just cut out the companion text block on all of them.
Yeah.
Because these cards would get played a lot.
Yeah, even without. Garuda is completely playable without.
Yeah.
Lurus. All of
Lurus is played as a 2 or 3 of in a lot of decks, even where it's not companion. Karuga the same.
Yeah, Karuga is a great example. Yeah, Lutri would be a great addition to any blue-red tempo deck or blue tempo deck here. But yeah, I don't think we'll see that, but
no.
I imagine we'll get a sort of state of design article from Morrow probably a year from now. And he just kind of goes, "All right,
half-heartedly admits it was a mistake."
Yeah. Somewhere buried deep in there is just going to be you can just read him sweating as he writes the words, "I'm so sorry."
Well, so and you said a year from now, which is a good way to bring up the fact that we have to deal with these things for 17 months.
Yes.
And that's just standard.
Yeah.
And if it were just standard, I might be less unhappy about it. But the fact that it's having that level of redefinition of other formats means we're stuck.
Yeah.
We are stuck with these cards for every other format.
Yeah, and I think it's really telling. Somebody asked Mark Rosewater on his Tumblr Blogatog, can cards be banned in Vintage? Because typically the option is just to restrict them. We've seen that plenty of times in the past couple of years. But to ban a card in Vintage is something entirely different. And he said, under the right circumstances, yes. And I think that's really telling. I mean, I think the only cards that are actually banned in Vintage are the cards that refer to ante specifically, but nothing else.
And the reason for that is it's illegal.
It is illegal, yes, to take your opponent's cards. This ain't street magic anymore.
Yeah,
good old Type 0 street magic in back alleys.
Right. I never played marbles as a kid, but that's what I imagine. When they have the circle and you shoot the marbles, and these are all mine now. I always saw that as a kid. I'm like, what?
I played a good amount of Pogs when I was in elementary school, and that was very much the playground rule. And it took about a week of that nonsense, and everyone complaining to the teachers. So that had to be shut down like that.
Nice.
So there you go.
Yeah, but so it's power creep.
Power creep for sure.
Power creep is what has caused this to happen.
Yeah.
But again, like we said earlier, right? We have to give credit where credit is due.
Mm-hmm.
Wizards has been creative in a good way the last few years. We have seen some interesting design experiments. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of them should never have made it off the cutting room floor. Oko being a great example of that.
Yes.
And again, I played Oko.
Yeah.
Because it was a good card to play.
Yep.
It just was not fun to play Oko Mirror round after round. But if they don't take those bold steps, we don't get cool things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They just need more insight into what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'll cut some slack. You and I both admitted, and I've seen a lot of people admit, when they saw Companion, they didn't overreact. They didn't think about it. The difference is I would hope that anybody who was designing them had sat there and read it more than the one time that we had.
Yeah, and I think there's two scenarios where we see Companion and you have the reaction that you and I did, where it's like, oh, that's cool. Well, maybe we see that on a couple of decks. But if it had been the inverse, where everyone just loses their mind over it, that's a very different situation.
Yeah,
and the pitchforks probably come out a lot sooner. And you mentioned power creep. Obviously, that's something that Wizards wants to do with every set, I think, but also to have it controlled. There's this weird circle of how how it just kind of, it always goes around in a circle. It gets a little bit weaker, but then comes back up as a little bit stronger in a different way. Yeah, this thing is kind of like doing this now.
Yeah, yeah.
Very roller coaster like.
Well, they've mentioned openly and publicly that, and I forget when it was exactly. It may have been after Eldraine, where they said the next X number of sets, because they're already done and baked, are of equal power level, and everybody kind of went, "Oh." So I appreciate their openness and honesty, and the fact that they said they are actively trying to bring that back down.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, for years it's been that kind of cyclic thing. You go back to the last, I think the last big design mistake before where we are right now was probably Phyrexian Mana.
Yes. Yeah.
And
great article posted by Sam Black about that exact topic. Is Companion worse than Phyrexian Mana? Answer is yes.
Absolutely. And I think, and that's 100% shown by the prevalence of cards. Now, I will admit, we are only 2 weeks into it.
Yeah.
So maybe in 3 months, maybe once we get the next core set, we'll see some changes, at least in standard.
Yeah.
But I don't see modern and pioneer, legacy, or even vintage shifting that much away from these things. But yeah, you don't see much Phyrexian Mana being utilized.
It's all been banned.
Well,
Pod,
that's true.
Pod, Gitaxian Probe. I mean, the only thing that's really relevant right now in any of these formats is Dismember.
And surgical extraction.
Extraction, yeah, absolutely.
But those are like staples that get run as a 1 or 2 of in what, 30%, 20% of decks in a format.
At least in those sideboards for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In a format where sideboarding is everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you could do a whole episode on that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's a bit of a worrying element there. You mentioned, we're going to see in a couple months with Core 2021 come out to hopefully shake things up. I wish the conversation was like that in a few months as opposed to 2 weeks in. Like that's a problematic perspective right there.
Theros, we started talking about standard, right? Theros Beyond Death was a great set in terms of impact on standard, because I think most players, even ones who put lots and lots of hours in, were nowhere near the burnout point on the format until the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Which is a good thing. Like, if people who are playing thousands of games are not burning out until a week or two before a new set releases, that's a good
that's a very
sign.
Good thing.
Now, it is interesting that we're talking about companions redefining the game when I was on Twitter this afternoon looking, and I was seeing several tweets of people saying it's fun to see how diverse standard is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. It is diverse. We talked about that even here. But it's still all companion diverse.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really weird spot for us to be in, and if we look back 6 months from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, I think we're going to have a much clearer picture of where things were going. I mean, obviously we'll see new sets and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the way forward is so unclear right now. It's a little troubling. So, I'm excited to see where it goes, but also terrified at the same time. So kind of to wrap things up here, I'm going to give the last word here to Ian before we close up for the night. You are in the control seat at Wizards of the Coast headquarters in Renton, Washington right now. Imagine yourself. Picture this. And there's a button in front of you. And it has the words.
This is the meme with the 2 buttons.
Be a dick. Don't be a dick, or whatever, however it is. And it's literally ban companion, Is that your move?
I think so. Fully knowing that is a nuclear option. That because we think about the business side of this, and so this is where I feel for Morrow, and I feel for everybody up there in Renton. because they have to think about brand confidence,
Yeah.
and we sink a lot of money and time into this game. And on the one hand, we're all shaken up. But like, I was thinking about this earlier today. If my favorite restaurant changes the recipe of my favorite dish,
Hmm.
I might stop eating that dish, but I'll still go to the favorite restaurant. Or I'll look around at some other restaurants. But if they're still the best restaurant in town, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And for me, Magic is still my favorite card game. I've
Yep.
played a lot of other digital card games. I played a lot of other actual card games. I always come back to Magic, even when it's broken and messed up. Um, that's why we have multiple formats, so I can take a break from the ones I don't like.
Yeah.
So I think they're sitting up there and they're sweating like the guy in the meme, and they're looking at the buttons of go nuclear or wait it out. Um, and the hard thing is if you go nuclear and you either ban all, what is it, 10, 12, whatever, however many companion cards. 10. There's one for every color, right?
Yes.
Or one for every pair.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 10.
10.
I can't count. You can ban all 10 cards. You can errata all 10 cards to remove the word companion. Either way, it's kind of a nuclear option.
Yeah.
That's a level of choice I don't think they've ever taken before.
They haven't, yeah. And you made a real good mention about brand confidence, consumer confidence. It sucks for little Timmy to go down to the card shop
Yep.
and buy a pack of Ikoria, open up Garuda, and go, wait, I can't play this card like this now?
Yeah.
That's a really big hammer to swing. That's a big button to push.
Oh, and you think about, okay, I opened the foil alt art because that's the other situation we're in these days, is we have alternate arts like crazy,
Yep.
which has created some crazy economy issues in the game. So yeah, I opened the super special, ultra rare version of Garuda, and it's a cool card because it is a cool card.
That's very cool.
And
yeah.
then I can't play it. And you can fall back on, well, you can still play it at the kitchen table, but that doesn't satisfy. Yeah. It's the same reason why the reserve list is such a hot topic of if you get rid of the reserve list, you tank the value of people's collections. Yeah. And we have this classic argument of, you've got people on one side who say, I don't care, my Underground Seas could be worth 50 cents and I would still play
You still play them, yeah.
And you have other people who are like, wow, you cannot sink my 10 grand deck to be $400, $200.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of brand confidence issue you would have if you especially if you just flat out ban the cards. I think if there is a right choice, it's errata.
Yeah. That's the safety valve. I think that they have to turn very, very slowly to make this as a surgical of a solution as possible.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of thoughts on standard, on companion, on Magic in general. Lots of good tangents. Always, this show thrives on tangents.
Oh yeah, it's good. Tangents are good.
Yeah, always good. Every which way possible. Yeah, and I'm absolutely confident that Ian will come back. We'll talk about something else. It will literally be anything else. Many other things. So, I mentioned at the beginning of the show tonight that you are streaming, Ian. You're on Twitter. You're on Twitch. Where can the people find you? Plug away, sir.
Yeah, so madcap_ginger on Twitter, on Twitch. There's a YouTube channel too, but I don't think there's anything on there because I am really lazy and I have not gone and edited videos to post to YouTube.
But soon.
But very soon, yes, because I will do it. But yeah, find me on Twitter, madcapginger, or Twitch, and I'm mostly streaming Arena and some Magic Online, and every now and then other card games. I'm kind of putting together a list of other card games that need to be tried out and streamed. Nice. So
very cool, very cool. Well, I'll make sure I put links to that in the show notes, so you can go and subscribe, follow, or whatever the kids are doing these days to us digital personalities. Just stay 6 feet away from me. That's all I ask you to do.
Follow me from 6 feet away.
Follow me away, but from a safe distance. A wide berth, if you will.
A wide berth. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Ian, thank you so much. I know this is short notice for us. I know we put this together in like literally 48 hours. So
that's plenty.
But yeah, especially Magic time. 48 hours is nothing. 48 hours is nothing. Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's the timeline.
That's the timeline. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're a busy man with work, with your family, so very much appreciating you being here tonight. And thank you all for watching or listening or however you're absorbing this content right now. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all of the appropriate channels of communication and whatnot. And we will be back next week with more of this. And the set review will be finished this week as well. Sam's going to be back with her cuteness overload freakouts. So get ready for those as well. But yeah.
Awesome.
Later.